Today we'll be talking about energy diagrams, and if we have time, we'll be also looking at stable and unstable equilibriums. Okay, so energy diagrams are very useful, and they tell us a lot about the problem at hand that we are trying to solve. Okay, so for example, look at the curve that you have on the screen. Okay, so this curve is giving you the value of potential of a particle or the potential function, and uh, it is varying with the position x. Okay, so at different position x, the object might have different amount of potential energy. Okay, depending on this function that is shown here in dark. Okay, so it's going. One thing you have to realize is when we talk about energy, the total energy is given by E, and it is equal to the sum of your kinetic energy term and your potential energy term. Okay, so uh, with regards of our kinetic energy, we know it is 1/2 mv square, right? So all the terms are positive here. So definitely your one term is positive. So the energy that you get will always be greater than or equal to your potential energy function. Okay, so that is one thing one should realize. All right, now we can consider the motion of a particle looking at the different values of the energy that it is possessing with respect to this u of x curve. Okay, so let's take the first example, and in the first example the energy of the particle is E1. Okay, so in the curve, if you look closely, it is representative of the area here. Okay, so E1 is this point right here. Okay, given by XA, and if you note clearly, even at x of B, the value is E1. Okay, so there are two possibilities of position where the energy of a particle can be E1. Okay, now looking at this curve, what you can see is if there is a particle or just a marble and you just leave it at E1 and just let it go, it's what it's going to do is it will oscillate back and forth about this mean position x0. Okay, and for situation like this where the particle cannot escape this potential function, we call it as a bounded function. Okay, and again it is going to be periodic, because if you let it go from here this end, it's going to oscillate back and forth between this parabola. Okay, so this function E equal to E1 represents a bounded and a periodic condition. Okay, so and the turning points where the particle is going to turn back and forth is XA and XB. Okay, so any object, if for example if you let a circular object go from this corner, right, and you don't give it any initial velocity, you just let it go, it's going to just oscillate back and forth between these turning points, right, and it can never escape this parabola. Okay, so it is bounded in that region. Okay, and that is what we mean. Okay, bounded means the particle never gets out of the region, and periodic means it is just going to move left and right. It's going to stop at XA, and then it's going to go stop at XB, then come back to XA, right? Just like your simple harmonic motion. Okay, so if you look at the way the simple harmonic oscillator energy function looks like, we looked at it before, 1/2 kx square, right? It has a form very similar to this parabola. Okay, and that's why it is a very good approximation to a bounded particle doing this periodic motion. Okay, that is what it represents. So we can have other conditions as well. Okay, suppose the energy is E2, that is shown like here. Okay, corresponding to this position x of C. Okay, and now you can see that there is not one possibility, but you have a possibility here, you have the possibility at x of D, you have a possibility at x of E is there, and you have a possibility at x of F. Okay, now all these possibilities, they do not necessarily represent the same thing. Okay, so we have to be very careful as to how we understand the motion of the particle depending on where the position is in this energy function. Okay, again, if the particle is in this region, right, from xc to xd, it will have the turning points, and it is going to be bounded, and it is going to be periodic if you don't provide it any extra energy, right? So if you just let it go, it's just going to oscillate back and forth this this valley. It is never going to cross this hill. Okay, only if you provide some extra energy, it can cross this hill and go to the other side. Okay, so that is one thing to remember, that even in this condition E2, the particle is going to be bounded, and it is going to be periodic, and it is not going to go beyond these turning points. Okay, the only way it can go beyond is you have to provide some energy to the particle so that it can go either beyond to this valley, or if you provide it even more energy, then it can go beyond on the other side. Okay, so again, at turning points, like we were mentioning, the velocity of the particle is going to be zero, just like your pendulum or your spring. At the end positions, the velocity is zero, and then the the energy, the kinetic energy, will be zero, right? And all the energy that is possessed at that position of turning point is your potential energy. Okay, so you see a lot of information you can gain by just looking at the potential energy curve. Okay, let's take another condition. The condition is when you are talking about energy of the particle being E0. Okay, so in this situation, very special here, because if a particle is sitting in this situation, just by intuition you can understand that if there is gravity acting on this particle in this direction, and at the same time if there is normal force acting on the other opposite direction, right? So in this scenario, both the forces are going to balance itself out, and essentially the force acting on this particle is going to be zero. Okay, and if the particle is in a situation like this, then it is not moving. Okay, unless you provide a force. If you provide a force, then it can go to a certain extent along this parabola, and then it will do the rocking motion back and forth. Okay, just like how we did in the spring, right? If you perform the experiment of the spring, we had the extra mass attached to the spring. It stretches the spring to a certain extent, and then an equilibrium condition is attained. If you stretch beyond the equilibrium condition, then it can start creating oscillations. Okay, so this is our situation here, that at E is equal to E0, we have a kind of equilibrium condition. Okay, so what we can say is that the particle will stay at this x0 forever unless you provide some extra energy to it. Okay, and then maybe it will do oscillation, maybe it won't. That depends on how the curve looks like. Okay, so there are other conditions. You can look at condition E3. Okay, so if the particle is initially, let's say there is a particle that is moving initially to the left. Okay, so there is a particle that is coming from this direction. Okay, now when it is moving in this direction and it sees this valley here, you know that the particle cannot cross on the other side, right? Because that is the amount of energy it possesses. When it is going to come and hit this point here, so that is the maximum point that is going to exist, and then it is just going to stay there, or it's just going to slide back down. Okay, but you won't see a condition where the particle can cross over this energy barrier. Okay, because this energy of this hill is higher than the energy that the particle is possessing. Okay, so a particle that has this energy, right, it represents that any particle that is going to come from infinity to this point, we call it as a turning point. Okay, and again at this turning point you will have the velocity as zero, then the kinetic energy here will be zero, because the particle will come strike this point and then it will go back, and the energy that is possessed by this particle here is entirely potential of the value of by virtue of its position. Okay, but again this is bounded position, right? So it cannot cross over. Okay, now that is the classical understanding. Okay, later on you will see that according to quantum mechanics, there is a possibility, a very, very small possibility that the particle can transition to the other side. Okay, and that is essentially what we call is tunneling. Okay, so that is just a quantum mechanical effect which you will see later on. So right now we are studying in classical mechanics, and according to classical mechanics, there is no scenario under which this particle that is approaching this bounded potential energy function can cross over this energy barrier. Okay. Similarly, you can think if the energy is more than this barrier, suppose the particle is coming with an energy like such that it is now here and the energy that it possesses is E4, then clearly it can possess more energy than this barrier. So it is performing basically unbounded motion. That is, it is not bound by any potential energy function. Okay, and then the speed of the particle you can find 1/2 mv square is just going to be E minus u of x. Okay, so these are some of the scenarios that you can encounter. Okay, your case of simple harmonic motion, and that is again looking like a parabola. So any object, suppose you have an object at this position x0, and if you displace an object from this position by giving it some force, uh, some energy I give it, and that energy can come from thermal energy, magnetic field, or I can kick an object, or collision, whatever. And if it is within this bounded region E1, then it is going to do the oscillatory motion. You see, that is just by intuition you can understand. If you drop something here, then it is just going to go back and forth in this bowl like picture here, right? And that essentially is your simple harmonic motion, okay, of 1/2 kx square. Okay, so properly way of writing is 1/2 k, the x, which is the displacement from the equilibrium position. So it is x minus x0 the whole square. Okay, so that's how we represent the u of x function. Okay, so that is how the bounded potential looks like. What we call x0 is a stable equilibrium point, and it will be apparent to you why we call it as a stable equilibrium. Okay, and again, at any position, there is some potential energy present in the particle, and if you provide it some kind of kinetic energy, then it can gain some amount of energy, and that can be represented as E. And within this bounded region, that is what the energy is localized at. And the region that is shown in green is the forbidden zone. That means, if you don't have energy beyond this value of E, then the particle can never cross that zone. Okay, so that is a forbidden region for the particle. Okay, and this can have a lot of implications if you can think of, in terms of how a particle interacts with other particle. What kind of force a particle can exert on the other particle would depend on the close proximity of the particles to each other, and it will depend on the uh, range of how much a particle can affect. Will the particle only affect its nearest neighbor, or can it affect like 5 nearest neighbors? So depending on that, whatever force field or whatever energy field you're trying to describe, you can model that into your system. Okay, so it's important to know until what point you can have this influence of the energy. Okay, and looking at the general case, what we do is, if you're looking at a very, very large scale, then you're looking at the cosmological effects. You're looking at effects that are happening between planets and stars and galaxies, right? If you're looking at very, very small scale effects, then you're looking inside a nucleus or something. Okay, if you're looking at regions of like let's say from 0.5 angstrom to 5 angstroms, so that you're going now in the case of solid state physics, where you're looking at crystal systems, and you're looking at how unit cells, they interact with other unit cells, and how the properties of materials get formed. Okay, so the length scale of interaction is very, very important in physics. Okay,
potential and stable equilibrium, we were saying that there are some stable equilibrium points in the system, and for example, you can imagine just by intuition that suppose I keep a particle at this position x0. Okay, suppose I just keep it here. Okay, I have not given any force, I'm just putting it there, and in that situation what will happen to this particle? Okay, so that is the question. And by intuition you can see that if I keep a particular ball or something in this potential, then it is just going to stay there, right? So that is just by intuition we can see that this is happening. Okay, now suppose I keep a particle at this edge, right? Or if I keep a small toy car at this edge, then from intuition that it's not going to stay there. If I let go, then it is going to come down, and then it is probably going to go up, right? And then it's going to come down and go back up, and then it's just going to keep doing this oscillation until there is some friction and some air resistance will come into play, and then eventually it will stop, and then it will come back to this position, right? So things like this, to us, just by intuition they represent some kind of stable behavior or some kind of instability that is present in the system. Okay, so let's look at these situations. We have something called the stable equilibrium point, right? And that is represented by this curve here. So it would be some point right here in our potential curve, okay, where a particle is sitting, and we can just understand from intuition itself that if this particle is displaced a little bit from its equilibrium position, that right now when it was sitting in the center of, let's say, a ramp, and we just displaced it a little bit, then what will happen? It will try to go back. It will try to go back to the point from where it was displaced. Okay, and then if you slightly displaced, let's say, on this direction, then it will try to go back in the opposite direction. Okay, so a stable equilibrium point, it represents a point where if the particle is displaced slightly away from the point, then it will tend to return back to that position. Okay, so that is how we represent a stable equilibrium point. Okay, and similarly, if I put a particle at the top of this hill, okay, and just again by intuition you can realize that, okay, suppose you have just managed to keep it at a stable situation, that it is just sitting there without any force acting, but if I just push it just a little bit on one side, then this particle is obviously going to roll down this hill. Okay, and similarly if I had just pushed a little bit on the other side, it will just roll down. Okay, and this situation of the particle existing on top of this hill is your unstable equilibrium point. Okay, and what it means is, if you displace the particle even slightly away from this equilibrium position, what it will do, it will tend to move even further away from it. Okay, so these are two distinct and separate situations, where in the stable situation, if I displace the particle, it is going to come back, and in the unstable situation, if I displace this particle, it is just going to move away from the equilibrium point. Okay, which is the neutral equilibrium point. You can see that the curve looks like a flat line approximately, and so if I just displace now this particle a little bit towards the left, right, and just slightly, then it will just stay towards the left if I just displace it slightly. Okay, and similarly if I displace it to the right, then it will just move a little bit to the right, and there is no concept of moving away or coming back to the original point. Okay, so that is a neutral equilibrium point, and that situation can also arise. Okay, so again, this situation, you can go back and see the curve that we had here, right? So again, this x0 position, if the particle is here, this would represent a stable equilibrium position. Okay, similarly a position here will be a stable one. Okay, and then we can represent the unstable situation with a different color. Let's do that. And all these positions, the one I'm marking in blue, now you can understand that these are all unstable, right? If I displace it slightly, then the particle is just going to go away. Okay, and these are all unstable, right? And we have our situation, this one was a stable one. Okay. So now that is just by intuition. You're looking at the diagram and you can see what the particle is pretty much going to do as you displace it slightly. Mathematically, we can represent it using the Taylor series. Okay? So any function that you want to expand about some equilibrium position or around some x value, then you can use your Taylor series expansion. Okay, and the approximation will be more and more valid if the x value of the variation from the position of x is smaller and smaller. Okay, so any function u of x can be expanded in this form, that it is mu 0, which is mu 0 is the position at x is equal to 0, that is your position, and now you're displacing this function by a small amount, which is du by dx, and then you are displacing about the x factor. So this is x raised to 1 by 1 factorial, and then you go x raised to 2 by 2 factorial, d square u by dx square, and then that it keeps going, x raised to 3 by 3 factorial, x raised to 4 by 4 factorial, until x raised to n by n factorial, d raised to nx uh, by dx raised to n of any function u. Okay, so this is a very common series that we use to solve a lot of problems. We can keep some terms in this series which are important for us, and eliminate higher order terms, and again it's basically allowing us to equate the function as closely as possible to this expansion, and the more terms you include, the better agreement to the actual function you get. Okay, so from a convention point of view, when x is equal to 0, if that is your equilibrium position, you can just take your frame of reference to be that equilibrium position and just say that x is equal to 0 at the equilibrium point. Okay, and if you do that, then you can say that at x equal to 0 there is no force acting on the object, so then you have the du by dx, which is the negative gradient of potential energy at that position, should be 0. Okay, and you can simply look at this curve here and try to understand that if you have a situation where this object is not moving, and that is happening because there is a normal force because of the surface here, and there is, let's say, gravity acting, and this n minus mg is basically balancing itself out, and that is equal to 0. Okay, and so the sum of the forces acting at this equilibrium positions are 0. And similarly here also, if you have mg acting here, there is some normal force acting in this direction, and so n minus mg even for the unstable equilibrium position is 0. Okay, so we can make the argument that the force at this equilibrium position minus du by dx will be 0. Okay, and uh, what you can also do is you can choose this potential mu 0 as to be 0. Remember, we had talked about it that it's arbitrary position. You can choose any position as 0 of your potential energy, and all the other values will be uh, adjusted accordingly to this 0 value. Okay, so if you do that, then your expression for u of x reduces to this form, that u of x is just x square by 2 factorial d square u by dx square. Okay, and plus some higher order terms. And now if you eliminate the higher order terms and you just take this first term, this is again similar to your expression of your harmonic oscillator, 1/2 kx square. Okay, so you have 1/2, you have x square, so k is this double derivative of your potential function. Okay, so that is what we are saying, that this k constant is the double derivative of this function. Okay, and the condition to verify whether you have a stable equilibrium condition or an unstable equilibrium condition is pretty straightforward. You have given a potential function, you take the double derivative of the potential function, and if the double derivative of this potential function is greater than 0, then you know that it is a stable equilibrium, whereas the situation is something like this. Okay, and if you have the double derivative of your potential function less than 0, then you have a unstable equilibrium condition that is existing in your problem. Okay, and again, if the double derivative is 0, then maybe it is neutral, maybe it is not. It's difficult to say. Okay, so that prediction is not straightforward as it might look. Okay, but at least for problems that ask you whether it is a stable or unstable equilibrium, you have to calculate the double derivative, and from the double derivative you can find out whether your condition of that particle is experiencing, is it in stable condition or is it in unstable equilibrium condition. A situation in which you have been given your potential energy function u, okay, and it is given that in a region of minus a to a of wherever this x is expanding, right, this force that is acting on the particle is related to this potential energy function, right, and we already know how the force is related to the potential energy, right. Force is negative of the gradient of potential energy, okay, we have already derived this. So what the question is asking is, we have to first find the force in this region. So if you just take the derivative, first derivative, you can find the force, and then it is asking you at what value of x the force is 0, and so basically that is telling you where the point of equilibrium, okay, we have to find. And in the third case you have to show whether the this condition where force is 0, is it stable or is it unstable, okay. So let's try to attempt this problem. Again, u is given, it is minus b by a plus x, and we have another term which is minus b by a minus x, okay. So those are the two terms, I'm writing them separately, and you have to take the derivative of this, that will give you the force. And again, like I mentioned in part C, you will have to take the double derivative to find whether it is stable or unstable.
So we are calculating in part A, okay, and we have to take the derivative of this function u. Remember there is a minus sign here. So if I take minus of this derivative of this function, remember there is a minus sign here as well in both the terms, okay. So I can take that minus sign out and I can write it like this, and b by a plus x, that is my first term, and the second term will be again d by dx of b by a minus x, okay. And we will try to do all the steps so that we don't get confused, right. So minus sign and minus sign will get cancelled. In the first step, again it is given that a and b are constants, right, so b will come out from the first term. We are trying to find the derivative of a plus x, 1 over a plus x, okay. So it's better if you write it as a plus x raised to minus 1, okay, and then take the derivative. If you do that, then you will realize that the first term should be your minus sign will come here because there is a minus 1 power here. So n x raised to n minus 1. So you have a minus sign that will come, and then this minus 1, you have to add another minus 1 to this term, okay. So that is the derivative of 1 by a plus x, okay. Similarly, the second term will be your constant b. There will be a negative term that will come because of a plus x raised to minus a minus x raised to minus 1 minus 1. That is, let me not go out of this because then I'll have difficulty, okay. 1 second. I'm going to limit my space here and write this line down here, okay. So I have minus b coming here, and then I have a minus x. Again I take the derivative, so it will be minus 1 will happen, and then I have to take the derivative inside this function, so that would be another minus 1 sign here, okay. So everybody is following this step. We are taking the derivative of this first function, right, and b is a constant, so it has come out. The term is a plus x raised to minus 1. So when I take the derivative, I will get a minus 1 a plus x raised to minus 1 minus of 1. So that will become minus 2. And then you can write it as minus b by a plus x square. Okay, so that is what I should get as the first term. And the second term will be, again, I am taking b as a constant outside. I have a minus x raised to minus 1, of which I have to take the derivative. So the derivative of a minus x raised to minus 1 will be minus 1 times your minus 1 times your a minus x raised to minus 2 it will become, and then I'm taking the derivative of the argument inside. So in the first case the argument was just 1, in the second case it is minus 1, so there is an extra negative sign here. Okay, so that would mean that I will get a positive sign here, okay, because minus and minus will cancel. So I will get plus b by a minus x to the power of 2. Okay, so that is what you should get. Okay, this is your force of x, which is the gradient of this function. And outside, if you, that's what you like, you can take b outside. You can write it as like this, minus b, and then the first term will become 1 by a plus x square minus 1 by a minus x. We don't have to simplify it further than this. This is good enough for us. Okay, because look at what we have to do in the next case. We have to find the value of x where this force is 0. So all we have to do is we have to equate force to 0. So let's do that, and if we do that, then we get this term p is this constant is equal to 0. So this b term will disappear, and what you are left with is 1 by a plus x square in the one first term, and then the second term will be 1 by a minus x square, and that is equal to 0. Okay, and again we have to take the value of x where the force is 0, so then we can just solve it, right? So when will this term be equal to 0? Every time x is equal to 0, you will get 1 by a square minus 1 by a square. So it doesn't matter now what a is. For every time any a, you will get that this force is 0. Okay, and so that is your value, that the force will be 0 when your x is equal to 0, right? At that position we have to see whether the equilibrium is stable or unstable. So the condition again to find whether the equilibrium is stable or unstable is to calculate d square u by dx square, the double derivative of this potential energy function. Okay, we know what u is. We have taken already the first derivative of u, du by dx. Du by dx is this term. Okay, remember there is a minus sign here, so let me just write that down. Du by dx will be just this term b times 1 plus a plus x square minus 1 by a minus x square. Okay, so the negative sign will get cancelled because we are calculating du by dx. Okay, so that is what du by dx is. Okay, and now we have to take the again one more derivative of this function, and that will give you d square u by dx square. But we have to calculate d square u by dx square at the location where the value of x is 0, because that's where the force is 0. Okay, that is what you have to do. Okay, so try it out, calculate the derivative of this function and plug in the value of x is equal to 0 and see what value you get. इसको ट्राई करो जरा.
सर 0.
नो, 0 नहीं आएगा, 0 नहीं आएगा. कर लो एक बार. टेक कपल ऑफ मिनट्स, ट्राई टू सॉल्व इट आउट. नहीं आता तो फिर विल डू इट. टाइम तो नहीं हो गया? कोई दूसरी क्लास तो नहीं है? Okay, minus 4b by a. Very close. Ayush, I think Ayush is very close. You guys are getting close to the answer. Wait, this was the answer for the previous one, then it is wrong. आया किसी का आंसर आ रहा है?
Zero answer है sir.
Okay, let's try to solve it out. Okay, so we have the du by dx function. We have already calculated. It is this value. Now let's take the derivative of this function. So d square u by dx square will be this b is a constant, and we are taking the derivative of this term, which is a plus x raised to minus 2. Okay, the second term will be minus, there is a minus sign here, so there will be minus b d by dx of a minus x raised to minus 2. So let's look at the first term. First term, say we will get minus 2 from this power, and then you have a plus x raised to minus 3, so I can put it in the denominator as a plus x raised to 3. Okay, and now I'm taking the derivative inside this argument, so the derivative inside this argument is just 1. Okay, so that's my first value. Now the second value is has a minus sign. Okay, so I have a minus sign here. Let me get rid of this. There is a minus sign here, so I have a minus b. Now again I'm taking the derivative here, so I will get minus 2. So I get a minus 2 here. All right, and then I'm taking a minus x raised to minus 3, so that will go in the denominator. So I'm having a minus x raised to 3. Okay, and then I have to take the derivative inside. There is a minus x sign here, so there will be a minus 1 sign here. Okay, d by dx of minus x. So let's see these terms. The first term is minus 2b, and I have 1 by a plus x cube. Okay, and this term is again minus minus minus, so it is again minus 2b. So I have another term here, which is 1 by a minus x to the power of cube. Okay, and now I want to plug in my value of x is equal to 0. So that would mean I have minus 2b times, if the first term x is 0, I get 1 by a cube, and the second term is again x is 0, so I get 1 by a cube. Okay, so the answer will be minus 4b by a cube. Okay, so that is the answer we are getting. minus 4b by a cube. And remember, it is given that a and b are positive constants. So if a and b are positive constants, then the double derivative is negative. And if the double derivative is negative, then we know that it is a unstable equilibrium condition. Okay. As d square u by dx square is less than 0.